Welcome to your astrological forecast for the week of Monday, September 18th through Sunday, September 24th, 2023. This is the last week of Virgo season, and Sun will actually enter Libra on Saturday the 23rd. So happy birthday, Libras. This is your time to shine for the next month. And even more importantly than that, the beginning of Libra is important because it's not just the beginning of Libra. It will be the fall equinox on the 23rd, on this Saturday. And that will mark not only the beginning of Libra, but also the beginning of autumn in the northern hemisphere. And this is, of course, important because the equinox marks that special day where the whole world has roughly 12 hours of daylight, 12 hours of darkness. So it marks a significant turning point. Astrologically, the fall equinox in the northern hemisphere is the halfway point of the entire zodiac. Okay, so you can kind of think of the 23rd as being directly opposite the first day of spring, the first day of Aries, which marks, of course, the transition from Pisces to Aries from one cycle to another. That point is super raw. The themes are intense and bright, if you want to put it that way, because something new is being birthed forward, right? So that's why the themes are very raw, if that makes sense. Okay, going opposite that to the flip side, where we are currently, where we're about to be, it's the themes aren't very raw. The themes are actually very nuanced right now, and I view Virgo and Libra, and specifically the first day of Libra, as being the most nuanced and complex part of the zodiac. Okay, so that's kind of the theme here. That's the theme of this general area when you're at the middle of the cycle, and you can kind of relate that to a human lifespan. So at the beginning of life and at the very end of life, we tend to be very raw. We are outspoken, we are eccentric, we don't care what others think. We just really put ourselves out there oftentimes when we're either very young or very old, right? But when you're in the middle of life, where I'm close to being, I guess you could say, where many of my viewers as well, many of you are around my age. Not everybody, but when we're in the middle of life, we have to make compromises, right? We have to be diplomatic. It becomes complicated. Free will becomes complicated, I think, because, again, we have to make sacrifices. We have to make compromises. We have to work with the world, depending on your personality and your lifestyle. You may have to make more sacrifices than others. It may not be necessarily an option to just be totally belligerent and totally bluntly honest all the time. Okay, so I'm illustrating this to describe the themes that we experience in the middle of cycles, in the middle of this part of consciousness, basically. So you can experience that in a human lifespan. We also go through this every year with the zodiac, with the constellations. Okay, Virgo and Libra know all about making sacrifices, being diplomatic, making compromises, that sort of thing. So that's generally the theme, as well as, again, things are complicated, things are nuanced. When it comes to sun signs of people and other placements, other planetary positions, I do think that the decans, I don't know if I'm sure many of you have heard of decans, but for Virgo and Libra, the decans really do matter a lot. Some people say, for example, August Virgos are different than September Virgos, September Libras are different than October Libras. You can apply that to every sign, but I think this is especially true for Virgo and Libra just because, again, the energies are so nuanced at this time. You can really break down the signs into their trimesters, if you want to put it that way, or smaller parts, because the themes do change so rapidly. They're so detailed, so nuanced. Does that make sense? So for example, we are entering Libra season. You may notice that, those who have Sun in Libra, they can actually be very different. I do think Libra is much more complicated and complex than most people realize. I would actually go as far as to say that Libra is one of the most complex signs. I guess I kind of already said that, but it's not just the Venusian, bubbly, diplomatic. We often picture like Aphrodite, someone who's super into art and someone who's very very nurturing, very receptive. That's part of it, but even in that kind of archetype, there is nuance because that energy in itself often comes across a certain way that I don't think is always indicative of what's going on a deeper level. Okay, I think many of those that have Libra placements are often misunderstood because they're so adaptable. Depending on how you look at it, they either have a very weak, fragile ego or a very strong, resilient ego. You could say it's weak and fragile in the sense that they don't put themselves out there. They don't stick to any kind of consistency. They're not going to hold fast to any kind of opinion or anything like that. They kind of just sway with whatever the nature of their environment is. So you could view that as weak, maybe. However, on the other side, it takes a lot of strength and resiliency to maintain that level of flexibility. So which is it? Is your ego weak and that's why you sway this way and that way? Or are you able to do all that because you are so strong and so deep and so multifaceted? Okay. And really, there's no right answer. You can view these things different ways. But basically what I'm saying is going into Libra, going into fall, it is a complex time. We start out fall with kind of an academic focus. This starts in Virgo, but it continues with Libra. So, we're going back to school. There's themes like that definitely there. There's also a romantic theme, though, as well. As fall starts in the Northern Hemisphere, the temperatures go down. And for whatever reason, I do think there's science behind this, but, the colder temperatures, they make things more passionate. You can kind of feel electric, like there's electricity in the air, and it tends to make us sort of drawn to each other. I think this is a very instinctual type of thing. So we can be a bit more romantic at this time of year as well. So Libra is interesting in the sense that it is very detached, very cerebral, very intellectual, very much willing to kind of just ponder things and mull things over. Let's just kind of think about things and talk about different things. But while it is very analytical, it's also romantic as well. Libra loves kind of exploring different emotions, different feelings. Yes, it is an air sign, so it's not the most emotional, but it still loves to explore those types of things. Libra has this kind of intellectual curiosity about people and about relationships. They love exploring, what am I like with different people? What are different people like? So that is kind of part of the theme here as well. Also, what Libra does is Libra is a cardinal sign. And again, Libra is starting the second hemisphere of the zodiac. So in other words, Libra is the first sign of the second half. Okay. Libra opposes Aries. Aries starts the entire cycle. Libra, it's starting a major part of the cycle, but it's just starting the last half. So you could view Libra as the beginning of the end. That's why Sun is in fall in Libra, because it is the first sign where there's now more darkness than light in the Northern Hemisphere, and the darkness is increasing every day steadily. The light is decreasing. So the Sun is in a really hard position here. Those of you that have Sun in Libra, I do view that as the most challenging Sun placement, as you may have heard. I think many people don't always know that. But what I was getting to, I got distracted there. But Libra is an initiating sign, right? That can be sometimes difficult for us to connect with because Libra doesn't always seem like a leader. But they actually are. It's just that they're leading through kind of a covert way. They're leading through other people. They're leading vicariously. They lead in ways that are, again, covert or kind of sneaky. Libra is ruled by Venus. And when you have energies that are ruled by Venus, there tends to be a lack of energy sometimes. So rather than, going out with some brute force that would require a lot of physical energy and stamina and a lot of courage to, make waves, so to speak, rather than doing that, Libra is going to take a method that requires less physical energy. They're going to rely more on their mental intuition and their cleverness, maybe, or their beauty, things of that nature, to kind of manipulate. And manipulation is not always a bad thing. We all manipulate. We all use tools or methods to get what we want. So it's not always sinister, but Libra is definitely kind of a master manipulator, if you want to put it that way. Okay, and again, I got distracted, but Libra, it's initiating. So what is the sign of Libra initiating? Libra is the cardinal air sign, so it is leading all themes related to air. It's leading through people. It's leading through ideas. Libra is the first sign that really opens us up to the greater outer world, right? In the first three signs, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, we were really just exploring ourselves, our identity. What am I? Who am I? How do I kind of branch out to my immediate surroundings? How do I take care of myself? My basic needs. And then in Cancer, Leo, Virgo, the exploration was more focused on family and close friends. What kind of, we already gained the self-awareness of the first 3 signs. So now we realize, there's other people in my environment too. They have consciousness too. That was something we kind of realized in Gemini. And then Cancer, Leo, Virgo, let's form those strong bonds. Let's become more aware of our family units, our tribe, so to speak. And then Virgo, we started this whole kind of perfectionist thing where we were integrating and kind of preparing for something new. And that leads us to where we are now, entering Libra season, where we're not only aware of other people in the sense of our neighbors, our close friends and family, but we're aware of people from completely different walks of life than our own, people that may have different backgrounds. They may disagree with us on different things. Libra is the expert diplomat. They're the expert negotiator, because that's the main theme here. Let's be aware of other people, other customs, other ways of being, etc. And this really opens the doorway for what is to be explored in the rest of the zodiac, which is all about the outer world, society, philosophy, things like that. It's all about the world, if you want to put it that way. So definitely a very interesting time. I know I don't always talk that much about a sign when we enter that sign, but I did think this was special, so I wanted to devote some time to it. Also this week, there are a couple other side notes. Sun moving into Libra is definitely the biggest one with that fall equinox. That is one of the 8 major pagan holidays, and specifically the 4, the solstices and the equinoxes are of course very important. I'll talk a little bit more about that in the forecast. There are 2 other side notes though. So one is a first quarter moon at 29 degrees Sagittarius. And on the one hand, that's not a super big deal. We get quarter moons every other week, basically. So nothing too life-changing for most of us. However, quarter moons do rile us up. They definitely have very tangible effects. And this one in particular, this is a first quarter moon. So first quarter moons, I always say I would view as the most volatile, action-packed part of the lunar cycle, even more so than the full moon. I know everyone pays attention to the full moon. That is definitely very tangible as well. But again, the quarter moon, specifically the first quarter moon, it's really the part of the lunar cycle where the moon is lit half full, and it's more than any other part of the lunar cycle. It's provoking us. It's getting us to get into action. It's the best time to start something new. And this is especially intensified, and it's especially impactful because this is a first quarter moon in Sagittarius, which is a fire sign. So it is about initiation. And it's actually happening at 29 degrees Sagittarius. So, in other words, excuse me, just before the fall equinox, we get this first quarter moon at the very last degree of Sagittarius. Last degrees of any signs are important because they mark kind of the crisis point. They're very critical in their nature. And sometimes there can be this flashback. Themes from other parts of the timeline, which we've already experienced, can kind of flash forward now. You may think that you were done with a certain kind of pattern, or you may have been struggling with this or that, and you thought you were over it, you thought you were done. But now with a placement like this, with this quarter moon, something may come back up, and you may get kind of a hint of something. You may get an opportunity. And basically what this is saying is, are you actually done with whatever it was? Are you done with, I don't know, maybe a dysfunctional relationship or whatever it is? You may have an opportunity to engage with that again on this quarter moon, and it's basically a test to see if you are truly done or not, okay? And there's no right or wrong answer necessarily, but if it was something that you were struggling with, I would suggest with, knowing what's best for you and maybe refraining from whatever it is. So that's definitely interesting. Also, technically this isn't happening this week, but I did want to say that Mercury just turned direct last Friday on September 15th. So keep that in mind. Mercury is slowly gaining traction. It's still, you can see in the chart for September 17th here, Mercury hasn't left the degree that it turned direct on. Okay. So in other words, the intellectual information, the communication, the learning, all of that is slowly gaining momentum. Mercury's no longer retrograde, so we're no longer having this kind of withdrawn, backward, past-oriented focus. We are starting to move forward, but it's baby steps, especially at the start of the week. We're slowly gaining momentum, and we may still be focusing on a lot of what we were exploring during Mercury retrograde, but we're starting to do so in a more productive, more linear type of way, if that makes sense. Okay, so definitely a very interesting week, a lot to cover. I did want to mention really briefly, if you wanted a reading, definitely hit me up. I will put links to my website wherever I can. So check out my website if you are interested in maybe learning about readings, or you can always donate to the channel, or what else? I don't know. Check it out. Subscribe if you want, all that good stuff. That definitely supports me, and it allows me to post new content. So I really appreciate all of that support. Okay, but let's get into the day-by-day forecast here. So Monday, September 18th, Moon starts out in Libra, but you can see very early in the day, Eastern Standard Time, Moon will enter Scorpio. So that is, of course, definitely a big shift. I talked in the last forecast about how with Sun in Virgo, excuse me, and then Moon in Libra, this was kind of a sleepy start. We had a pretty chill weekend, I would say, because the moon still had little to no light, and being in Libra, this was, a particularly diplomatic, kind of chill, laid back sort of energy. We can be a bit more thoughtful. We're more inclined to think before we act, that type of thing. However, as we get into even morning Eastern Standard Time with Moon entering Scorpio, this does change the dynamic. Yes, Moon is in fall in Scorpio, so this is generally a challenging placement. Moon in Scorpio can be emotionally intense and emotionally very deep. There can be a lot of value in that, and there can even be a lot of fun and pleasure in those deep emotions. But at the same time, how do you manage that? Deep emotions can kind of, push us off the rails, and they can also make us more difficult to understand. We can be kind of paranoid or cut off from other people. We may be more psychic and more aware of each other, but at the same time, we have these deep feelings that are difficult to convey. There's a lot going on beneath the surface, so it's kind of an intense energy. However, Sun is in Virgo, so Moon and Scorpio, these are aligned, so to speak. Moon will gradually move into a sextile with the Sun. So in other words, yes, Moon in Scorpio is a bit tumultuous and a bit uncomfortable. We can be a bit insecure. But at the same time, because this blends well with Sun and Virgo, this energy kind of goes nicely. We have the practicality of Sun and Mercury in Virgo, being very down to earth, sticking to what we can sense, that type of thing, not getting carried away with anything that's unrealistic. But at the same time, Moon in Scorpio contributes to this. It contributes a more emotional focus as well. So earth and water, they do blend very well. Practicality with emotional intelligence and intuition, they combine to create potentially really great common sense and awareness, great judgment. Okay, so in other words, yes, Moon is in fall in Scorpio, but Moon being in these uncomfortable signs can provoke us to take action or make improvements. Okay, Moon in Scorpio also, it also provokes us to have that heightened awareness, that heightened intuition and analytical ability as well. Okay, so this is a great energy for really researching something, getting into the details. If you wanted to gain more awareness or more of an understanding on really anything, a person, a situation, a theme in your life, whatever it is, or if you wanted to research for school or work, whatever it is, this could be a really great dynamic for that. Of course, it depends on how these things fall in your chart, but that is the consensus, I would say. So kind of an interesting dynamic start to the week, I would say, for sure, for Monday. Okay, for Tuesday, September 19th, Moon continues through Scorpio. We're getting closer to that sextile aspect. We won't technically get it on Tuesday. So in other words, the Moon and the Sun have a harmonious dynamic. We're not at peak harmony yet, if you want to put it that way, but we're, it's becoming more harmonious. So again, you have this juxtaposition of Moons in Scorpio, which would typically indicate us being a bit emotionally restless, a bit insecure, a bit paranoid. But at the same time, because it's in a harmonious dynamic with the Sun, this lightens that blow a little bit. We're more likely to explore some of the more easy positive themes of Moon in Scorpio. Again, that heightened intuition, heightened analytical ability, the heightened perception and awareness in general. So all of that is, again, it's dynamic, but potentially useful depending on how you engage with it. We do have one aspect for Tuesday. That would be Sun opposing Neptune. So this kind of throws this in a completely other direction. Sun at 26 degrees Virgo opposes Neptune at 26 degrees Pisces. I always say whenever you highlight the Virgo Pisces axis, it's all about integrating, do the things that can allow your mind to relax. Because if you're too burdened by stress or chaos, with an opposition like this, you may be more likely to have burnout or to lose your grip on reality, because that's a theme that can come up with Virgo Pisces oppositions like this, especially this one, because we are incorporating Neptune into the mix. Neptune, it doesn't like things to be clear. Neptune makes things foggy, delusional, more subjective. It's hard to be rational. It's hard to measure things and be objective and to know, is my perception on this really accurate? There's just no way to really know. Everything is kind of true or not. There's no quantifying it. So this can make you crazy. So again, do the things to unwind, relax, things that are methodical in nature, even like household chores, cleaning, reading, writing, what else? Gardening, cooking. Those are great pastimes as well. Things that are, I'm picturing like old people kind of themes, like things that are a bit more relaxed or subdued. Maybe they are creative, but they're also kind of passive in nature. Those things are really great for building intuition and integrating as well. So that will really help you to get your best bang for your buck. And rather than going into insanity and escapism, you can actually go into the opposite, which is greater enlightenment, greater mental stability. Okay. And then moving right along to Wednesday, September 20th, we start out the day with Moon still in Scorpio. And then looks like just before noon Eastern Standard Time, Moon does leave Scorpio and enter Sagittarius. So for the morning Eastern Standard Time, that is when we'll get that exact sextile between the Moon and the Sun. So it's very harmonious. Again, we've got that weird situation with our emotions can be a bit uncontent or a bit paranoid, but at the same time, it can potentially be in a very harmonious dynamic too. So I don't know what to make of that, to be honest with you, but you can kind of go whatever direction with it you want. You can either, go more into the fear and the paranoia and the insecurity, or you can go more into, oh, cool, my perception is heightened. How can I use this? What can I learn about? What can I figure out? That type of thing. So that still applies for the morning Eastern Standard Time and to the surrounding time zones. But going into the afternoon Eastern Standard Time, we do have Moon in Sagittarius now. So of course that's a much different dynamic. Moon in Scorpio for the last few days was a lot more pessimistic. I would say that's the biggest difference here, is that Scorpio is one of the most pessimistic signs, maybe the most pessimistic sign. And then now we have Moon in Sagittarius, which is one of the most optimistic signs. So now collectively we can be much more gregarious and optimistic. This is more of a celebration type of energy. It's kind of like holiday energy, if you want to put it that way. So this actually blends all right with Sun and Virgo. Technically they do square each other, but we're no way near a square aspect quite yet. Okay. So for now, we don't have a harsh angle yet. We're just combining Sun and Virgo with Moon and Sagittarius. Yes, they are very different, so they do clash in some ways, but there are some commonalities here. Both of these energies are intellectual. So having Sun and Mercury in Virgo with Moon and Sagittarius for the next couple days, this could be a really great time for having deep conversations, questioning, the bigger picture, asking those larger than life questions, being philosophical, having deep conversations. I don't know if I said that already. Learning, any kind of learning, whether it be, little detailed factoids or big overarching concepts. Generally, it would be more book smart stuff, though. I guess it could be, you could also apply that to physical learning as well, like, the trades, things like that. But yeah, just learning in general. That's what these energies generally support. And again, it could be learning in a detached way, like learning from a book, phone, documentary, whatever, or it could be hands-on learning as well. Virgo and Sagittarius together can really go either way. Okay, and also for Wednesday, really that's it, honestly. So, we're gradually gearing up for the first quarter moon, but at this point, I would say we're just kind of celebrating moon in Sagittarius. We're so far away from that quarter moon aspect that, I would usually say because Sun is in Virgo, moon is in Sagittarius, they're going to be in those same signs for the first quarter moon. I would usually say that we'd already be starting to feel a lot of this restlessness and anxiety, but honestly at this point I think we're just kind of having fun, learning, being kind of analytical. I think that's more the focus on Wednesday. Okay, Thursday, September 21st, moon continues through Sagittarius. And by now, you can see noon Eastern Standard Time, moon is approaching halfway through the sign of Sagittarius. So we are getting closer to that first quarter moon aspect now. We're not going to have that yet today on Thursday, but we are getting closer. So we will start to feel that restlessness, anxiety, and stress potentially kind of bubble up to the surface. And also just the chaos. There's a lot of action today. People are all over the place. People are acting crazy. There's more activity right now. There's more energy. And this can come across as a burden. It can seem chaotic, especially for those of us that, really want that stability. This can seem like a nuisance, but I always say quarter moons, especially first quarter moons, they don't have to be restless or anxious. It doesn't have to be stressful. It's a great time for starting something new. So I would even go as far as to say that Thursday is a great time for starting something new. I do think Friday would be better since that's when we have the actual first quarter moon. That's when moon will actually square the sun by aspect. However, we are already in the midst of it on Thursday as well. So if you did need to start something new on Thursday, some kind of project, something with work, something in your life, Thursday could be a great day for that as well, since we're already feeling that pressure to be energetic, to be active, to change something in our lives, etc. Also for Thursday, we do have Sun trining Pluto. So Sun early in the day at 27 degrees Virgo will make a trine to Pluto at 27 degrees Capricorn. This is interesting because typically planetary aspects with Pluto, they channel in that Pluto energy, right? And Pluto is very dark, literally. Pluto brings about themes of, insecurity. It brings about themes that whatever is deep down below, right? Pluto in mythology rules the underworld. And I do feel like that's a very apt metaphor for Pluto in astrology because with a Pluto aspect like this, whatever you have deep down, whatever you wanted to just kind of sweep under the rug and not really worry about, whatever those insecurities or fears were that you didn't want to deal with, Pluto's going to bring that up for you to deal with. And yeah, that doesn't sound fun at all. It definitely seems like a chore. It is kind of a chore in some ways. However, you can make the most of this by, confronting those fears and shining light into the darkness. What was once subconscious or internalized and, put away, whatever you may have been in denial about, you can become more aware of. That can be painful or even traumatic to go through that process, but it's also healing. That's how you heal. I think a lot of the time it can hurt to heal. It can be uncomfortable. When we heal, it's itchy or unpleasant or even painful, but you have to go through that in order to heal, right? So if that sounds really dark and unpleasant, it may be. However, this is a trine though. Sun is trining Pluto. So this makes it a bit easier. You may be a bit more willing or more able to have that kind of self-awareness and look at things objectively, and not view things so emotional. Keep in mind, Sun is still in Virgo and Sun is the one making this aspect. So we're approaching these things from kind of a methodical, kind of Virgoan type of way. So in other words, let's look at those fears. Let's look at those insecurities. Virgo is a great sign for this because it's naturally inward focused, right? That's why you have the curved M with the line going inward for it in the symbol, because it's focused on itself. It's focused on digestion and integration. So what better sign to apply this trine with Pluto, maybe gaining some awareness, doing some, we could also be focused on organizing or taking stock, doing some internal work, so to speak. You can take that different ways. It could be, internal work in your office, workplace, home, whatever it is, remodeling, throwing out, getting rid of the trash, organizing, taking stock, things like that. Or again, much of that could be emotional and mental as well. Okay, I think that wraps that up. So Friday, September 22nd, we finally get that first quarter moon at 29 degrees Sagittarius. You can see we get this a little bit afternoon Eastern Standard Time. But honestly, the time of this isn't so relevant because this will affect us for the entire day. Like I said, we are already in the midst of this Thursday, feeling a bit rambunctious, feeling a bit stressed. I got to do something. I got to change something. That energy will definitely affect all of us basically on Thursday. And then it peaks on Friday when we get that actual first quarter moon aspect. Okay. So again, this, more than any other part of the lunar cycle, this is provoking us to take action, get out there, do something new, make some kind of change. This will happen at 29 degrees Sagittarius, so it is kind of an action-oriented, crisis-oriented point. So this could bring about some volatility. It could bring about some mishaps, accidents, potentially violent accidents. I hate to say that, but it is a potential because when you get aspects like this, anything can happen. It can be all across the board, good things, bad things. Your view of whether this is good for you or not is irrelevant in the grand scheme of things in a way, right? The activity is just all over the place. It's frenetic, it's chaotic, it's all over the place. And you can especially see this in children and animals, I think, when you're around a quarter moon like this, especially a first quarter moon like this. You'll see that kids and animals are, they're wound up, they're staying up late at night, and they're bouncing off the walls. And even the rest of us as well, all of us can kind of feel this energy in one way or another. So on the downside, you could be stressed, anxious, irritable, especially if you are trying to rest a lot today. It's just not going to be a good day for it. I want to apologize if you need that rest today. It's just unfortunate because it's going to be difficult. So if you can plan ahead to recognize that this is an active phase, that may behoove you to do, because right now it's just not going to work to rest. It will stress you out. Today is the day to take action. If there was anything on the back burner, anything that you had on your to-do list that involved a change in your life, do it today. Do it on Thursday or Friday would be even better, because that's what this is all about. It's about making some kind of change, starting something new, etc. Okay, and then late in the day, in the evening Eastern Standard Time, Moon will leave Sagittarius and enter Capricorn. So in a way that is kind of refreshing because, Moon moving into a new sign marks a dramatic kind of cutoff point to that first quarter moon energy. So in other words, Thursday and then especially Friday for most of the day, tumultuous, chaotic, restless. But going into Friday night, you may suddenly feel like, what I just pictured is like when the sun sets, usually there's this cool breeze that follows it. I noticed that when I lived on the West Coast, and then even now in Florida, I'm pretty sure the same thing applies here. I don't know if there's a name for that, but that's what I'm kind of picturing. It's like some kind of intense event, in this case, the first quarter moon. And then it's like there's this cool breeze that follows, and that is Moon entering Capricorn. So it's kind of chilling things out, bringing it home. It's reducing the energy a bit. And I do think for most of us that can be welcomed, so that we can kind of, we can have that volatility, hopefully make the most of that, start something new, take action, but then kind of just immediately chill out afterward as we go into Friday night. Okay, and then Saturday, September 23rd, this is the fall equinox. So happy birthday, Libras. It's your time to shine for the next month. And again, this is the fall equinox in the northern hemisphere. It's the spring equinox for you southern hemisphere people. There's not a lot of you that watch this, but just wanted to throw that out there. But yeah, if you're watching this, you'll most likely live in the northern hemisphere. So we are starting autumn now. We're starting fall and we're starting Libra. So again, I think I mostly covered it in the intro, but it's all about focusing on other people, networking. How do we relate to other people? I wouldn't go as far as to say, what groups are we a part of? That would be more Aquarius. But, we're starting to think in that type of way. We're starting to become more aware of the outer world. Of course, we personally, we have different transits going on for us individually. We experience different things at different times. But this, of course, is the collective focus. This is what we go through every time we go through this time of year. Fall, with those cooler temperatures, it makes us more aware. And I think that awareness can be applied again toward, academia, learning, but it can also be applied toward, becoming more aware of our relationships, having those stronger feelings brought out, even if right now the feelings are more of just a curiosity. Oftentimes Libra is the flirtatious sign. So this is kind of the phase of consciousness where we are having this kind of intellectual curiosity of other beings, other energies. Let's talk, let's have interesting conversations, let's be maybe a bit flirty. It's all about kind of experimenting and kind of trying different things, seeing how we relate to other people or how we don't relate to other people. What does my energy look like when I surround it by other energies? How am I impacted by other people? How do I impact people, etc.? It's all about people, learning, the outside world, etc. So it kind of sets the stage for a very interesting sign. I do think, again, Libra is a bit more complex than most people realize. Okay, so Sun entering Libra, the way most people on a more general kind of viewing, I guess you could say, Sun in Libra is detached. It's light. Now we're in an air sign. We just had a month of Sun in Virgo, so things were a lot more, heavy, practical. Let's be a bit serious. Let's get organized. Let's learn, that type of thing. Now with Sun entering Libra, we still have that bit of detachment, but the detachment grows, is what I was trying to say. And, we're still focused on learning, but it's more of a kind of just a playful, detached, let's not take anything too seriously, that type of thing. However, being detached also allows us to be more objective as well. Sun in Libra is, yes, it can be this flirtatious, kind of fun, bubbly energy, but it can also be very detached, very serious, very scientific. So it can be really great for that, objective learning and objective philosophy, things along those lines we can, delve into as well. But yeah, generally this is a kind of peaceful time of year. It's the beginning of the end, and this is kind of a soft beginning of the end, if you want to put it that way. This is one of the most beautiful times of the year because Sun in Libra is ruled by Venus, so 2 times of the year that astrology would suggest are the most beautiful would be the middle of spring, because that would be Taurus, and the beginning of fall, because that would be Libra. Both are ruled by Venus. So that's where you get many of those beautiful fall colors. There, you have the benefit of having those cooler temperatures at many latitudes, but it's not, biting cold. It's not icy yet. It's just kind of, ooh, this is exciting. It's getting cooler. Okay, so that's the energy of Libra. I think we can all kind of understand that and experience that in our own way. You get that. You understand that on some level, even if you aren't aware of it. Okay, so definitely a huge shift there as we get into the weekend with Sun entering Libra. We do also have one other aspect for Saturday, so that would be Venus trining Chiron. So Venus at 18 degrees Leo, trining Chiron at 18 degrees Aries. And I do think this is a really beautiful energy. Chiron in Aries can make us so volatile, so easily offended, so triggered. We're so ready to just go up in arms and fight for our truth, fight for our past. If you don't understand me, if you don't get it, then screw you. You're either with me or against me, and I'm going to fight you, fight for my truth. That whole, I've said in past forecasts that, there can be some benefits of that we can gain, but there's also potentially a lot of destruction. However, with this aspect, this is a trine. Trines are harmonious. They're easy. And specifically, this is a trine from Venus, which is in Leo. So it's bringing about this kind of lovely, more diplomatic energy. Let's be peaceful. Let's be pleasant. Let's be very expressive and kind of focused on our own self-expression, but in a way that is kind of pleasant or just fun-loving, kind of a childlike energy. So combining these two energies, I think this could be really great for maybe having some deeper conversations about our past, or it will still be a bit egocentric since these are fire energies. So we may still be focused on our own journeys, our own experiences, and focused on the expression of those things. However, there is enough of that Venus energy that we will still be receptive, enough to have a functional conversation. So that's potentially a good thing, I would say. And I would say to take Chiron aspects with a grain of salt. I do definitely view them as tangible. You can connect with this, and that's why I mention it. However, I don't think these things are as tangible as these other, planetary aspects. Okay. So take it with a grain of salt. If you have any planets around 18 degrees of the fire signs, Leo, Sagittarius, or Aries, this will affect you more personally. You may have kind of a deep heart-to-heart conversation. You may have boosted empathy today, which can actually be a bit awkward. Chiron usually makes things kind of awkward. But again, we're also incorporating that Venus energy, so you can maybe have fun with it, play around with it, maybe have a very productive, deep conversation with someone you're close to, maybe, or maybe someone who has a different opinion than yourself. Of course, use your own discernment there, maybe use some caution, but that's what these energies suggest to me. All right, and then going forward into Libra season now, moving forward to Sunday, September 24th, Moon will, in the very late part of the day, Moon will enter Aquarius. So basically, Eastern Standard Time, we have Moon in Capricorn basically all day still. So technically, Moon is in the sign that squares the Sun, but we already dealt with that first quarter Moon. We're not gonna deal with that. So that ambitious, restless energy is fading away, and by now, it is interesting with Sun in Libra and Moon in Capricorn. Both of these placements are debilitated. So Sun is in fall in Libra. It's the beginning of fall. Sun is in fall in Libra. That's not a coincidence. But also Moon is in detriment in Capricorn. So in other words, the Sun and Moon are in very kind of awkward, unusual signs right now for them to be in. With these detriment and debilitated energies, we can feel a bit outside of the box. That's the way I like to put it, because what does that imply? We're outside of the mainstream. We can feel alienated, ostracized. I don't fit in. We can feel kind of alien, or we don't feel, what's the word, like you're not comfortable in your skin or whatever. Like that's kind of the feeling that it's a bit awkward, a bit unusual. However, the plus side of being outside of the box, outside of the mainstream, outside of normal, is that you can think outside the box. You can come up with very interesting ideas, rich viewpoints. These energies are supporting us in being a bit more individualistic in our thinking. So thinking for ourselves, coming to unique conclusions, etc. So while this is a more objectively difficult energy, I do think it can be very interesting to experience, if that makes sense. We can learn something new or view something in kind of a different type of way, an interesting way that we might not normally view it in, if that makes sense. With planets like this, or Sun and Moon, in this case, the ancients described them as being exiled. So it's like you're in a foreign place and you don't know the language, you don't know the customs. You are kind of disempowered there. What do? You're not able to function normally or properly. But again, there's benefits of that too. You can explore and just get lost in this totally different world. It can be scary, it can be uncomfortable, but you can learn so much from that too, right? So that's I think a very apt, very functional metaphor for this. It's not a super big deal. It's not like these, it's not the Sun and Moon aren't aspecting each other or anything like that, so it's not going to be a super critical time. But I did think that whole dynamic was interesting with Sun in Libra and Moon in Capricorn for the rest of the weekend. So if you feel a little weird over the weekend, that could be why. It could also be the change of seasons. I think whenever the Sun moves into a new sign, even if it's a somewhat easy sign, I think it can be a bit destabilizing, because I think we tend to get used to one energy. Even if it's a objectively challenging energy, if it's an energy that's very unnatural for you to experience, you do get used to that over time. And so once it changes, it can kind of, sweep the rug out from under your feet, if that makes sense. So, so it wouldn't surprise me if many of us feel a bit awkward or unusual for Saturday and Sunday, really, with these dynamics. Nothing too major, nothing scary or life-changing for most of us, but just a bit of awkwardness or just feeling like something's changed, but we don't know what exactly. So this will take time. We will adjust to this. So not a super big deal. And like I touched on, Eastern Standard Time, very late in the night, just before midnight, Moon will leave Capricorn and enter Aquarius. So depending on your time zone, Moon will enter Aquarius either late on Sunday, the 24th, or early on Monday, the 25th. And once Moon enters Aquarius, I am getting ahead of myself a little bit. However, I do want to say that, as we get into Monday, if you did feel awkward over the weekend, that should get a bit easier going into Monday, because Moon will trine the sun. As soon as the Moon enters Aquarius, it's going to trine the sun, again, either late Sunday or early Monday. So then we'll get this air trine, which is going to be all about socializing and being a bit detached, being curious. So that is going to support us in being in a collective good mood, so to speak. Okay, so that's what I have for you this week. I hope this forecast was helpful or interesting for you. I tried my best here. Definitely a lot of interesting things going on. Next week, we have a full moon in Aries, so that's going to be very exciting. A lot of, exciting themes from that. Whenever you have sun in an air sign, moon in a fire sign, and you get that full, that fire full moon, that can be very action-packed, very interesting. Also, I do want to say that it was the last full moon before eclipse season. So in other words, next week with that Aries full moon, it's a normal Aries full moon, if you want to put it that way. But that's the last full moon before the eclipse season. So 2 weeks after that, on October 14th, we will get a new moon solar eclipse in Libra. So I know that's a few weeks away, but just want to put that out there that eclipse season is coming. So there will be really intense changes kind of on the horizon in the near future. So enjoy this relative normalcy while it lasts. Last thing I want to mention for next week is Mercury does leave the post shadow. So, that would suggest us going in a more normal direction, so to speak. Mercury is direct. We are moving forward, getting done and complete with all those, retrograde themes of going in the past and gaining more self-awareness, integrating. We are moving forward, moving on to, bigger and brighter things, more external things, new things, next week as Mercury leaves the post shadow. So again, I hope you enjoyed that forecast. Stay tuned with me next week. And yeah, thanks for hanging out with me for this forecast here. And if you made it this long, I don't know, comment something crazy in the comments for me to know, so I know that you made it to the very end of the forecast. Okay, but have a great day. I appreciate all the support, and I'll see you next week.